put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
This is my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fun, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Good morning and welcome to the program. It is Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and live around the world on the internet as well at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find links to the audio-only podcast and links to social media and so much more. Good morning. How are you? Are you ready to go? We've got a big show lined up for you today. We're going to be chatting with our friend Dr. John Lott, who is the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. You can find them at crimeresearch.org. We're going to talk with him about the latest firearms news, including Trump's actions in D.C. and the reduction in crime there, and also, of course, the particulars around some of the things that happened in the Minneapolis shooting, including the application of gun-free zones and more. That's going to be our course of action today with Dr. Lott, and anything else he might think is important for us to discuss. We're going to be joining him here in just a second, and then in hour 2, we've got some other headlines to listen into and read about, and we've also got, of course, some of your phone calls and more. And as always, we'll finish up on our Friday show with our friend Willie Waffle, who comes in for to lighten it up a little bit with our weekend entertainment and movie review. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's jump over here and get things done, and get started with our friend Dr. John Lott, again from the Crime Prevention Research Center, who comes on board to discuss all these things with us this morning. Good morning, Doctor. How are you, my friend? How are things going?
Doing great. How about yourself?
You know, it's fall. It's not snowing yet, so we're pretty happy about that. But we're getting ready for the white stuff and we had a beautiful summer and we're ready to go. I know you've had an exciting time. Congratulations again on your nuptials and everything else. And I just appreciate you taking the time out to come out here and talk with us today.
Sure. Well, when I lived in Montana, up until recently, it could snow any month of the year. It actually snowed on July 4th. I don't know if you guys quite have that. I assume you might also.
Yeah, well, sometimes. I remember one time when I was a kid in the middle of July, there was a hailstorm, and it's hail and snowstorm on the lake we were at for about 4 hours. It was a kind of a crazy thing. But
hail is a little bit different. I've lived in Texas and other places and gotten hail in the middle of summer too. So,
but it's weird. It's one of those things. I'm glad we don't have to deal with that too much. It's good. I like a little bit more of the warm weather as I get older. That's for sure. Right. All right. Well, let's dive into this, and I want to start off. You've had several articles since the last time we talked. And I do want to get into this issue and some of the things in Minneapolis. You've got an article in the Wall Street Journal talking about the manifesto and gun-free zones and some other things. But I do want to talk first about President Trump's actions in Washington, D.C., his actions to bring in the Guard in the emergency situation because of the crime and the carjackings and everything else that's going on in Washington, D.C. And, of course, there's a huge furor over it. I mean, the Democrats did not want to see any of this. The D.C. is still trying to sue right now in court to get to stop the president's actions. But incidentally, shocker of all shockers, the president did all this in an effort to stop some of the violent crime, the gun crime, the carjackings. And there's been a actual there's the murder. I mean, there's things have happened. Give me the details here about what's going on in Washington, D.C.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not rocket science. It's amazing to me how people call Trump a racist and whatever for federalizing law enforcement in DC there. But, if you want to reduce crime, you have to make it riskier for criminals to commit crime. And that means things like higher arrest rates, higher conviction rates, longer prison sentences, also making it possible for people to be able to go and defend themselves. All those things can make it riskier. And he's tried to move on all those different dimensions that are there. So, DC had about 1,300 patrol officers, which means that you have only about 400 on maximum on duty at any time to go and take care of a district of 721,000 people. And you can understand why the DC police union felt that they were stretched too thin. Plus, they had all sorts of restrictions on how the police were able to go and do their job. They couldn't chase after suspects, for example. There's a whole range of restrictions that they faced. And so Trump put over 500 new federal law enforcement on the street, FBI, drug enforcement agents, ATF, ICE. And he also put over 800 National Guard officers there, allowing them to go and do law enforcement type activities. And so effectively, you more than doubled the number of officers on boots on the ground at any point in time. And they've had a huge increase in the number of arrests. He's also changed the prosecutions that are there. The DC is different than the rest of the country in that the U.S. attorney for the district is in charge of prosecuting crimes by adults. During the Biden administration, the U.S. attorney who was appointed by Biden just didn't want to prosecute many people. There were, during 2022, for example, he refused to prosecute about 67% of arrests. During 2023, he refused to prosecute about 56% of arrests. Judge Eugene Pirro is extremely different. I mean, she is an aggressive prosecutor, and people who are being arrested by the police are being prosecuted. And they've picked up a lot of illegal alien criminals who are there in DC and removed them, plus probably scared the ones that they haven't picked up into laying low or to moving out of the area, which all those things reduce crime. And it's been an amazing, and also they've made it easier for people to be able to go and protect themselves. Up until recently, it was taking like 6 to 8 months to go and get approval for a concealed carry permit. And the Trump administration put pressure on DC to speed that up to within 2 weeks. So those are dramatic changes that have occurred. And we've seen huge changes in crime. I mean, people have to understand what a high crime rate DC had to begin with.
Right.
If you compare it to the other 25 largest cities in the country, their murder rate last year was 28% higher than the number 2 city in the country, Indianapolis, and was like 160% higher than the average for those cities. They want to make DC the 51st state. DC's murder rate is 169% higher than the worst state, and 434% higher than the average for the other states. So we just went through a 13-day period where there were no murders that had occurred in DC. The odds of that happening randomly is like 1 out of 800. Mayor Bowser, the Democratic mayor who initially opposed Trump's actions, recently announced that during the first 3 weeks, there was an 87% drop in carjackings that had occurred in the district. And you can go through the list of violent crimes, robbery down by 42%, violent crime down by, I believe, about 40%. Those are really major changes that have occurred there. And to the charges by Maryland Governor Wes Moore that somehow these are racist actions by Trump. You have to understand the latest data we have is for 2021 for the racial composition of crime victims. But 96% of those murdered up to that point were blacks. So,
How is it
here we're
racist?
having this huge drop in murders, and 96% of the murder victims are blacks. I don't know how that's racist. I mean, if anything, you would think people should be thankful that he's saving so many black lives.
Right, minorities. Well, people might ask, well, what does this have to do necessarily with Firearms Friday? I just find it thoroughly interesting. Washington, D.C. is one of the most unfriendly gun zones in the country. And yet they have this tremendous violent crime rate. Again, you hit on some of the statistics there, and we all know that Dr. Lott is kind of the king of statistics. This is what he brings to the table in a lot of things. I mean, when DC has a murder rate that's 434% higher than the national average and 136% higher than the nation's worst state, which is Louisiana, and yet it's a gun-free zone, or a gun control haven, I guess I should say. That's what really brings this to my attention is here you have this zone, crime is out of control. The president does these things, which of course everybody's opposed to. And whether that's just because it's orange man bad or whatever, the truth of the matter is that there's a correlation between the number of police officers that have hit the street, the visibility, all the hype and everything else. And it has created statistically significant drops in all these amounts of crime. It's, this is, and I'm not saying that we should do this in every city, but this is an obvious show that the Democrats, as much as they want to care about the people and the minorities and everybody else, they're not really caring about the victims of crime, it seems like, as much as they are caring about defending some of the perpetrators.
Right. I mean, that's been the puzzle for years. You have Mayor Brandon Johnson in Chicago saying it's racist to go and put criminals in jail, and blacks commit a disproportionate amount of the crime. But the thing is, their crime victims are blacks. 90% of blacks are murdered by other blacks. So, the question you have to ask is, do you want to go and make life easier for criminals, or do you want to make it easier for the victims of crime? And it's not just the direct victims of crime, though those are horrible and lives are being destroyed in many different ways. It's also the indirect victims. You have businesses that close down because of the crime. Who disproportionately owns those businesses? Who works in those businesses? Who shopped in those stores? And for the ones that remained open, who has to pay the higher prices for the products that are there because of the crime? And then you have all the people that live in those areas that own houses whose property values are depressed because of the high crime rates that are there. Democrats claim that they care about the poor, that they care about minorities. And yet, when it comes to saving lives and protecting people and making sure that their lives are better, somehow it's wrong. They say they care about Black Lives Matter, but not when Trump is the one who's saving the lives. And this is relevant for Firearms Friday because, as I mentioned, it's not just making it risky for criminals to go and commit crime in terms of law enforcement and the court system, but also trying to make it risky in terms of making it a little bit easier. They still have a long ways to go in terms of victims being able to go and protect themselves. It's one thing to be able to go and say you can get a permit, but you have to wait 6 to 8 months to be able to go and get it. To be able to go and get it in 2 weeks. Now, is it still too costly? Are there still too many hoops that you have to go through with the training and other things that's required? Yeah. It's not like Alaska by any means. And the high fees and other things that they have, the high costs of getting a permit, stop precisely the people that my research indicate who benefit the most from being able to go and protect themselves. Basically,
Right.
The people who are most likely victims of violent crime, basically poor blacks who live in those areas. But at least it's moving in the right direction.
Well, isn't that the history, though, of gun control? Is it disproportionately affects those people? I mean, it's the small minority of people who do bad things with firearms that then make it harder for law-abiding citizens to protect themselves from that same small percentage of people who are doing bad things. That's the conundrum of gun control or any of these other laws where they want to penalize the vast majority of lawful law-abiding citizens for the actions of a fraction of a percentage of the people out there. That's part of this whole problem.
Right. Well, I mean, the problem that you have with gun control generally, and you're hitting on this, is that the gun control laws that you have make it more difficult relatively for law-abiding citizens to be able to go and have guns for protection than it does for the criminals. One thing you and I have talked about before is that every place in the, this is just one example of it, but it's not limited to this. Every place in the world that's either banned all guns or all handguns has seen murder rates go up. They haven't even stayed the same one time. You think if gun control activists are right that gun ownership on net's bad, then you should see big drops in murder. You should see drops in suicides. And yet every single time, the murder rates go up, and often by very large amounts, like 3-fold, even 7-fold increases in murder rates afterwards. You think out of randomness, just once or twice, it would go down. But the problem is, and this is the reason why this applies to other things, is that if you make it relatively more difficult, I mean, it's going to be the more law-abiding citizens who are going to obey these laws. And to the extent that you disarm law-abiding citizens relative to criminals, you may take a few guns away from criminals. But if you're primarily having a law that primarily disarms law-abiding citizens, you're going to make it easier for criminals to go and commit crime.
Right. You've expanded the victim pool because they're defenseless now, because they are law-abiding by definition, and criminals by definition don't care about the law. So you've just made it easier for them to create a fish in a barrel scenario. Dr. John Lott is with us. He is the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. You can find them at crimeresearch.org. We're coming up on the break. We're going to take that real quick. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Dr. Lott's latest article with Thomas Massey on some of the things that are in the Minneapolis Killers manifesto and the things that the media continues to ignore. We've talked about it with Dr. Lott many times, but it just bears repeating until somebody actually starts paying attention to this stuff. We'll continue with Dr. John Lott in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. It's Firearms Friday.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Dr. Lott is our guest, and we are continuing on this Firearms Friday. We're going to get into this Minneapolis shooting. But again, I think that there's a lot of commonalities and threads. I do want to sidebar for a minute since we're in the break right now and get Dr. Lott's take on the president's latest action and on the action of the HSS director or head, and that is, of course, Robert Kennedy Jr. and his push now to start taking a look at SSRIs and other antipsychotics and psychotropic medicines and their effect on shootings. I know, Dr. Lott, you've done some research on this and some statistics, statistical analysis, I guess I should say, on this. What's your take on this move by RFK and the president to try and look at some of the causality underlying this violence that we're looking at?
Well, I don't mind them looking at it. I don't think they're going to find anything. You frequently have heard over the years that 90% of mass public shooters or 70% or whatever are on those types of drugs. I can't tell you the number of times I've reached out to people who have made that claim. And I said, well, I don't know how you got that data. I can't find it because of privacy rules, but can you provide me with the data that you have? I mean, you must have some data if you're making these precise percentage claims. And I have never been able to go and get them to give me the data, no matter who's making the claim. So, after about the 20th time you've asked for the data and they don't, they keep making claims, but they won't give you any data. It makes me more than a little bit skeptical about this. And but beyond that, I've talked to people in the field, and they tell me that, it's possible you can get psychotic breaks if you go and you change the level of the medication that somebody has. The problem is that these psychotic breaks would tend to be relatively short-lived. You're talking about something that's, a week or two, something like that. And the thing is, when you go and look at these killers, they're planning these attacks long in advance. I mean, 6 months is a short amount of time for them to go and plan these attacks in advance. Somebody like the Sandy Hook mass murderer was planning his attack over 2.5 years prior to his attack. And so, even if, we're not even talking about breaks that last a month or more. So, if they had something to do with it, they might have something to do with the timing, but not whether or not they were thinking about doing this. And I have to tell you, on top of that, I've looked at the diaries and manifestos for these mass murderers, things that they've been putting together over long periods of time. And I don't see any changes in their mental attitude over the time period. They're basically obsessed with these things long in advance, and it's not like they become crazier in terms of their comments that are there. So I guess I'm just very skeptical. You have about half of these mass murderers were seeing mental health care professionals prior to their attacks. So it's possible that they were getting some type of drugs beforehand. But the thing is also, when you look at these their diaries and manifestos and other things, it's pretty clear, even though half of them were seeing these mental health care professionals, there's not one single case where any of these mental health care professionals identified any of these individuals as a danger to themselves or others.
Right.
And
let's continue this thought. I'm sorry, we're about 15 seconds here from rejoining the radio,
Sure.
so I want to
Sure,
crack
sure.
in here because no, it's fine. I think this to me is part of the most fascinating topic surrounding this issue, because we know that there's a mental health component to all this, but how do we analyze it, and how do we keep people
No, I'm happy
safe
to talk about that.
on that? So we're gonna kick things off with that. The Michael Dukes Show, Common Sense Radio. Here we go.
What the hell is an assault weapon? Does that mean that if we hurt your feelings, you should consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can accept that. Here's Michael Dukes. Kind of a dick, but somewhat funny.
All right, we're continuing now. Dr. John Lott is our guest from the Crime Prevention Research Center, author of the book Gun Control Myths and also More Guns, Less Crime. We were just talking during the break about the president's move through RFK Jr. to look at SSRI drugs and other psychotropics that have been used by shooters. Is there a connection? Dr. Lott doesn't think so, but I mean, he got a little bit deeper into this, the manifestos and the writings that these guys put forward. And you were just saying that you've looked at a lot of this stuff, and it's hard for the average person to try and find some of this information, because I've been interested in reading what was on the shooter's mind. What were they writing? What were they planning? And you made an interesting observation that said, even though a lot of these known shooters were seeking mental health care, psychiatric care, whatever, none of their providers, their care providers, pinged to the fact that these people were violent. There was nothing that really stood out in those regards. Walk me through this. How does, if there's a huge component of mental health to these violent shootings, which I think we can all agree that there's some serious issues there. What do we have to do to fix it? How do we show that? How do we get the information out there? What has to happen?
Right. Well, I think a large part of the problem is mental health is based on people who have problems going out and asking for help. And so I've talked to people in the field, and they basically say they assume that the people that they're talking to are telling them the truth. But that's turns out to be pretty problematic in these cases. So, you read the diaries and manifestos for these individuals, and they brag about how easy it is to go and fool these people, these mental health professionals. I mean, mental health professional may ask, are you having violent thoughts? But unless these individuals are stupid, they're not going to go and say, yeah, I'm having violent thoughts that are there. And that's what they write in these things. So, you have even cases like the Buffalo mass murderer from a few years ago. He was in high school at the time, the year before the attack, and he was asked by a teacher what he was going to be doing over the course of the summer, and he said he was going to find a school that had summer school and shoot it up and kill as many people as possible, and then go and commit suicide. Obviously, the teacher was concerned, and she flagged him, and he had to go to the hospital for 24 hours or 20 hours, where he was evaluated by 2 mental health care professionals. And they asked him about it, and he said, oh, it was a stupid joke. He shouldn't have said it. He's sorry. It's just a joke. And both the mental health care professionals said, okay, he's joking. That's end of story there. You look at something like the Santa Barbara mass murderer. He had actually seen 3 mental health care professionals. One of them was an internationally recognized expert on youth violence, the head of psychiatric services at Los Angeles Children's Hospital. And but the same thing happened there. He'd be asked if he had any violent thoughts, and he would say no. And he was just amazed that he was able to go and fool these experts that were there. And so, you just see this over and over and over again. So here's my concern, and that is anybody who's looked at this realizes that there's a large psychiatric literature about their inability to go and identify these individuals as a danger to themselves or others. And if that's the case, what's your backup plan? What do you do if you're not able to go and identify these individuals? And obviously, the psychiatric profession, psychology and psychiatry, see themselves that they can. And they have a whole bunch of explanations for why they can't. One is just how rare it is. So we probably have about 3.5 to 3.9 million schizophrenics in the country. Well, if you look since 2019, there's been one mass public shooting involving somebody who was diagnosed as being schizophrenic. That's a pretty low rate that's there per schizophrenic.
Right.
And so, if I were to go to you, let's say you're a mental health care professional, and I say, of those 3.5 to 3.9 million, identify the 1,000 that you think are the most likely to engage in these types of mass murders. Even if one of those 1,000 was the right one that's there, you still would be wrong 999 times there.
Right.
And so, and mental health care professionals will also tell you that those who have mental illness are less likely to be violent on average, and they're more likely to be victims of violent crime on average. And so, it's understandable, but here's the bottom line, and that is, if you're not able to identify these individuals, and I have no problem with wanting to spend more money or more resources on dealing with mental illness. There's surely a lot of people on the street who are mentally ill, and people who go and commit these types of mass murders are overwhelmingly, almost completely suicidal, which is obviously a type of mental illness. But if you can't identify these guys beforehand, what's your backup plan? And that's allowing people to go and defend themselves. And this gets into our discussion that we'll be having about the Minnesota case that's there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you make a valid point. If they are intentionally misleading the healthcare professionals, then it becomes nearly impossible to diagnose it. Like you said, if they've asked the question, even if they're subtle and they don't just come out right and ask, are you having violent thoughts? Even if they beat around the bush, but the intent of the patient is to obfuscate the truth, it makes it that much more difficult. And you even mentioned when we were talking about some of the drugs and things like that, the statistics on that are iffy at best because you can't get real data on it. So it makes it more difficult to try and figure out if there's precursors or there's some kind of connection there as well.
Yeah. Well, we have to take into account what these individuals think that their goal is on this, and they're overwhelmingly, they want to commit suicide, but they want to commit suicide in a way that's going to get them media attention. I can't tell you how many times I've read these diaries and manifestos where they'll say, if I can only kill more people than such and such did, I can get even more news media attention. So look, I'm not saying to go and get rid of the First Amendment. I wouldn't even know how to rewrite it in any case. But the problem that you have is that these guys, they want to get media attention. They know the more people they kill, the more media attention that they're going to get. And they know if they go to a place where their victims aren't able to go and defend themselves, they're going to be able to go and kill more people and get more media attention. And so, the question is, how do you stop that? And the way you stop the attacks is by making it so that victims are able to go and defend themselves. Because if you have somebody there quickly who's able to go and stop the attack, you're limiting the amount of carnage that they're going to do, and you're going to limit in their mind the amount of media attention that they're going to get. I mean, you look at something like this murder that we had last week in Minneapolis. I have to tell you, and I've mentioned this to you before, one of the things that just drives me absolutely nuts with regard to the media bias is their refusal to go and talk about why these killers, these murderers, pick the targets that they do. Time after time after time, in their diaries and manifestos, they explicitly explain why they pick the targets that they do. You think that would be newsworthy, but
Absolutely.
the media refuses. So I just read you a passage from the manifesto for this mass murder, and that is, quote, I recently heard a rumor that James Holmes, the Aurora theater shooter, may have chosen the venues that were, quote, gun-free zones, end quote. I would probably aim the same way. Holmes wanted to make sure his victims would be unarmed. That's why I and many others like school so much. For at least for me, I am focused on them. Adam Lanza is my reason, of course, end quote. Of course, Lanza it committed the Sandy Hook Elementary School mass murder.
Right.
And there are other parts of his manifesto where he explains he didn't want to go and attack early in the morning when the parents are dropping off their kids at school, or in the afternoon when they're picking them up, because he was worried that some of the parents may have concealed handguns. And they would be able to go and stop him before he could go and kill many people. So he wanted to go and do it during the middle of the day where there wouldn't be any parents around.
We're always looking for commonality and connectivity between these events. What is the most common thing? How can we prescribe? And that's why they're talking about like drugs and other things, but they continue to avoid this kind of topic. And we're going to continue with this here in just a second. Dr. John Lott is our guest, the Crime Prevention Research Center. We're going to get deeper into this manifesto from the Minnesota shooting. And again, the commonalities we see with every other shooting that's going on out there. Dr. Lott is our guest. We'll continue one more segment dead ahead. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more. And Dr. John Lott right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Dukes Show.
Okay, Dr. Lott is our guest, Crime Prevention Research Center. You and I have talked about this, John, the almost the culpability of the news media in this. I mean, you just talked about how, in diaries and manifestos, they have the suicidal ideation, but the idea is to get as much exposure and media coverage and fame in those last minutes or posthumously right afterwards. And again, the news media, feeds into this. I mean, you just said a couple names, reading from the manifesto, saying a couple names of shooters. I don't remember the names of shooters anymore because I refuse to use those names. But the news media, they've gotten a little bit better, it seems like, over the years. It doesn't dominate the news cycle quite so much, but we've seen this time and time and time again, where it's the news media feeding into this frenzy, which again just helps plant that seed for the next guy to say, oh, I can one up it, or I can get at least as much exposure and fame or infamy as this other guy. This is another part of the issue that nobody's really talking about.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't think the legacy media is any better. They're pretty much the same as they've always been in terms of the coverage. You may go and argue that some of the newer kind of media, like, the Megyn Kelly show or something like that, podcasts, Ben Shapiro, others refuse to mention the names of these mass murderers, but they still think that they're getting a lot of attention on this, unfortunately. Look, people have wanted to commit suicide forever, okay? But someplace along the line, some of those who craved attention, who felt that they weren't appreciated, realized that if they could get a lot of attention if they just killed a lot of people when they were committing suicide. And so the thing you have to do is take away the media attention. Now, as I mentioned, there's two ways you can do that. One is you could get rid of the First Amendment. There are plenty of countries like Canada, for example, which bars the media from talking about the names of criminals before their trial.
Right.
But I guess I'm not a big fan of that, and I wouldn't want to get rid of the First Amendment in any way. And I don't even know how you would rewrite it to go and allow that. But look, the other option is to make it so that they can't kill too many people. And the way you do that is having somebody there on the scene quickly to stop it. And so rather than a sign in front of the school that says, this school is a gun-free zone, have a sign in front of the school that says, warning, select teachers and staff at this school are carrying concealed and will go and use the guns to go and protect students and others that are there.
Right.
Alaska, I can't remember off the top of my head what % of the adult population is a concealed carry permit, but obviously you're a constitutional carry state. You've been there for decades, so you don't even need a permit to be able to go and carry. And, my guess is you go to a grocery store or a movie theater or a mall or whatever, a restaurant, is very likely that there's a high probability that somebody nearby you is carrying concealed, and you have no idea whether they're carrying or not. And
Right.
that's the huge advantage of letting teachers and staff carry. You're taking away the tactical advantages that these killers have.
Right.
And maybe after the break's over, we can kind of talk about kind of the limitations of police being able to go and carry. We've recently finished a study on all the active shootings in the United States from 2014 through 2023, dealing with that.
Yeah. No, I would love to. And you're right. The solution here is more armed citizenry, trained and armed. Because again, no mass shooter is going to want to play Russian roulette with a sign out front that says, instead of gun-free zone, it says, warning, somebody in here is armed and will use deadly force. That's kind of the red flag for those guys, is they don't want to go in places like that, because we've seen what has happened. I mean, the Greenville mall shooting was a prime example of that, where a mass shooter got started and was immediately dropped by an armed citizen. So we know that those kind of things can help and it can work. And in states where we have constitutional carry and other things, the likelihood of these mass shootings happening or I guess extending, starting, but maybe stopping early, is much greater in states where citizens can defend themselves. All right, we are 20 seconds out. We're going to continue with Dr. John Lott. Please like and share the show and share it with your friends. Make sure that you tell them about Dr. Lott being on here and share this information. It's good stuff. And don't forget, of course, to go out and watch, subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we're putting up shorts every day of some of the highest, best moments we've got. Let's get to it. Here we go.
What the hell's an assault weapon? What isn't? If I assault you with a penguin, doesn't that make it an assault weapon? Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
Dr. John Lott is our guest, president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. We are talking with him about the manifestos and diaries of many of the mass shooters, which he's had a chance to examine and go over and look at for commonalities. What is the connection between all of these events? The Minnesota shooting is one of the latest, of course, and Dr. Lott has found some connections in there, specifically with this idea of gun-free zones and the one solution to many of these problems. Dr. Lott, dive down into that for us. You just were talking about how armed citizens, armed teachers, armed staff can be a counterweight to these kind of things, but this is something that you're seeing not just in Minnesota, but in most of these writings.
Right. Well, I mean, as we were talking about before, you can't help but read these manifestos and diaries for these mass murderers and know that they spend long periods of time planning these attacks, and that they focus over and over again on picking gun-free zones. And yet, even though they explicitly talk about these things in their diaries and manifestos, the media just absolutely refuses to cover those things. I mean, it seems to me that would be newsworthy to go and say, yeah, we've had yet another mass murder where these murderers have explicitly picked those targets where they know their victims are unarmed, as this mass murderer last week said, and are easy targets. Now, one debate that I've had with conservatives is they want to have uniformed police officers in the schools, these school resource officers. And look,
Right.
I understand the desire there, but I think they're making a big mistake in terms of how they do that. And that is, if you have somebody in uniform there, you're giving real tactical advantages to those who are doing these attacks. So if I have one officer at a school, let's say, and he's in uniform, and somebody's thinking of attacking, and they see the officer there, what can they do? Well, they, if there are multiple buildings there at the school, they can wait for the officer to leave and move on to another building before they attack, or they can go to another building themselves and start the attack. Or if they're going to insist on attacking in that one place, who do you think they take out first? If they know that the school resource officer is the only person that's armed and they kill that person, they're going to have free reign to go after everybody else that's in the school there or wherever they're at. One way to think about this, we have air marshals on planes. Does anybody think that air marshals ought to be in uniform?
Right.
Does anybody think that that would be a good idea? I don't know anybody who would think that that's a good idea. And the reason why they don't think that that's a good idea is because if there was a terrorist on the plane and they knew that the air marshal was the only person that could really stop them from doing their crimes that are there, who do you think they're going to go after first? Because they know if they take out the air marshal, they're going to be much easier for them to go and do their attack. It's the whole reason why we have air marshals on planes and the whole reason why we have them not in uniform. But yet somehow they don't make that connection when we're talking about other cases that are there, other places that we want to go and protect.
Well, and that's
we've got a study on this. I'll just say we've looked at all the active shooting attacks in the United States from 2014 through 2023. And what we found was that civilians with concealed carry permits actually stopped active shooting attacks at a higher rate than police did.
Right.
And that's in part for a couple of reasons. One is, as we're just saying, if you have somebody in uniform and the attacker is going to attack an area, he can wait for the officer to leave, or he can go and move on to another target himself. Both of those lower the odds that the police officer is going to be present when the attack occurs. With the concealed carry permit holder, they don't know who's armed before they go and do the attack. The other thing that's there is you only have so many police. We have like 650,000 or so police in the United States. You have maybe 200,000 that are on duty at any point in time. That's 200,000 officers who are doing multiple different types of jobs that have to go and protect 340 million people. That's asking a lot of those police officers that are there.
Right.
It's hard for that many officers to protect that many people. In the United States, we have 21.5 million concealed carry permit holders. Plus, we have 29 constitutional carry states where it's not even necessary for you to have a permit to be able to go and carry. So we have a lot more law-abiding civilians out there to go and stop. A lot more. I mean, it's a huge factor more. It's like 100. It's like 100-fold more to be able to go and protect them. So it's more likely to be there. Now, the other thing that we found that was just amazing to me was not only are the police less likely to be there and compared to civilians, so the civilians are more likely to stop these attacks, they also stop them faster. And so when they do stop them, there are fewer people who are killed or injured. And then the most amazing fact is that even though police are stopping fewer of these attacks, there are like 7 times more police officers killed in these attacks than you have civilians. And that's because it's like having somebody in uniform is like having somebody with a neon sign above them that says, "Shoot me first." So they're the targets if an attack occurs there, and the attacker, the murderer there, wants to go and do it, before the officer can leave the area, and they don't want to pick another target.
This is a failure. I think this is another failure of the mainstream legacy media, where not only are they obfuscating the fact that gun-free zones are a big part of the problem, they don't highlight, in fact, they downplay the role of armed citizens in stopping a lot of these events. If an armed citizen stops an event, then that news story dies in a few hours or a day, instead of being on the air for a full cycle saying that it was armed citizens that did it. And that, you're right, those are the solutions right there. Armed citizens and no gun-free zones, that's what's going to help this situation, because you're giving people the ability to protect themselves from because you can't legislate evil or insanity. Like you said, if the shooter is going to lie to their own psychiatrist, you can't legislate stuff where they are intent on doing this harm. And the defensive gun use and the gun-free zones are two of the biggest problems. We got about 2 minutes here, Dr. Lott. Let's finish up with your thoughts on this overall. Give us a wrap-up on this.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the whole gun control debate that we have right now would be dramatically different if, once in a while they would say, there's another diary or manifesto where this individual picked a gun-free zone to go and do the attack. It'd be very different if the media would say, 92% of these mass public shootings occur in places where guns are banned. They don't need to use that statistic, but they could just go and say, look, we've had yet another mass public shooting where it was a gun-free zone.
But is that the number,
though? Don't want to link it to the guy explicitly picking it because of that. And then finally, it would be a very different debate if some of these cases, on our website at crimeresearch.org, we've compiled like 50 cases since 2020 where police have said that a concealed carry permit holder had stopped what otherwise would have been a mass public shooting. And, these are dramatic cases, but they just get some local media coverage.
Right.
I can give you many examples where it's pretty clear that if the civilian with the permit concealed handgun hadn't been there and many people have been killed, it would have surely gotten international news coverage. But
Right.
It doesn't. It just gets some local media coverage when you have a civilian who stops these attacks and saves all those lives.
Yeah. Is 92%, is that the accurate number for, the number of shootings that have occurred in gun-free zones? Is it upward in the 90s like that?
Mass public shootings, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 92%. That's a crazy number. And again, you'd think that the news media, if they were doing their journalistic, responsibility, they would look at those numbers. They would talk about defensive gun uses and things like that, but they don't. If you want to find out more, go to crimeresearch.org. Dr. John Lott, author of the book More Guns, Less Crime, Gun Control Myths, War on Guns. And of course, he does lots of great work. You should go out there and follow him out there on everything he writes. Dr. Lott, we really appreciate you coming on board and joining us today. Thank you for being part of the show.
Well, thank you for being there.
All right, hold the line for a second. Folks, we're out of time. We got to go. Hour 2 is dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. We'll see you. Yeah, I feel some of the frustration here, Dr. Lott, especially, again, we've had, you and I have had nearly hour-long.
I have to run. I apologize, but I have to run right now.
All right.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on board, Dr. Lott. Appreciate it. Dr. Lott and I have had hour-long conversations nearly about, defensive gun use and everything else that's going on with that. It's astonishing how much the media wants to downplay that and the gun-free zones, how they want to downplay both of those things as if they are not an important component of what's going on. It's pretty amazing stuff. Is there such a thing as journalistic responsibility, or is that just made up? Asks Frank. Well, Frank, we'd like to think there is, right? We'd like to think that there's journalistic responsibility, journalistic integrity. Although I'm kind of feeling more and more that that's not necessarily the case in this day and age, for sure. Chris says we saved people's lives from being able to carry a gun from a mass shooting. Well, that's the thing. And again, you can go back, and I want to go back and maybe we'll look at he said they've got 50 cases over at crimeresearch.org. They got 50 cases where a citizen or a civilian was able to stop a incident from becoming a mass shooting event. And again, it hardly ever gets covered. The Greensville mall shooting is the one that I can think of right now. That one and the knife attack at Walmart here that happened recently, where the guy went crazy and started carving people up in a Walmart, and he was stopped by a Marine, former Marine who was armed at the time, and he was held at gunpoint until police showed up. Those are two incidents, one that ended in lethal force and one that ended in not a shot being fired. And of course, that's the big conundrum with defensive gun use, is that there are so many instances where not a single shot is fired. And the fact that the mere presence of a firearm in the hands of an armed citizen is enough to slow that down and to put it's amazing. If you haven't been over to crimeresearch.org, you should go over there. There's lots of good information over there, things that you can pull together and use if you're making arguments or just want the information. He's got lots of good info over there on that as well. So we'll get into that. I want to talk a little bit about this article. Brian, who's in the chat room every day, Brian Cherry, who's a friend of the show, helps us moderate the chat room sometimes. It does everything else. He sent me this. He sent me over to this Substack, and I've been following this Substack ever since Brian first dropped me a story on this. It's Open Source Defense on Substack. opensourcedefense.substack.com. And I don't know who the author is. I haven't gotten that far down into the weeds on it to figure out who it is. But I'm going to try, and reach out and see if I can get the author on the show. I also am trying to get BJ Campbell from Hand Waving Freakoutery on the show as well, because there are some really good. We're just talking about mainstream media and their lack of integrity or responsibility. And that's where this new media, this alternative media, is doing some good work, some really good work, some deep analysis, whether it's in statistics or legal issues or whatever. There's so much good stuff out there. Both Hand Waving Freakoutery and Open Source Defense, both of them on Substack. We've got Sarah Montalbano. We're going to try and have her on Monday. I'm waiting to hear back whether or not she can come in on Monday, but she writes on Substack. Substack is really kind of becoming, for me, one of the go-to resources for information and analysis of deeper issues. Anyway, OSD has got a new piece that just came out here yesterday, day before, talking about the courts and the fight over the NFA and suppressors. And I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to break this down. I might make this a next Friday, like a whole segment for next Friday, where we get into this, because there is some really, really good stuff here to discuss about what does it mean for the courts. The Fifth Circuit declining to strike down the NFA suppressor regulations in U.S. v. Peterson, and the discussion on what is the actual duty of the courts to get in on this. Anyway, I really, I think we should dive into this, but I'm going to try and reach out into. I'm going to try and reach out and see if I can get a hold of the author of this Substack, and we'll see what we can do. There's some good stuff out there, though. If you haven't perused some of the Substack readings, you should go out there and check it out. Okay, and then thank you, Brian. Brian just dropped a link in the chat room on the updated cases where armed citizens have stopped active shooters. That's from last month. So thank you, Brian. That's some of the work that he does with us here, as he helps us post links and stuff in the chat room. Some good stuff. Most of the mainstream media, says David, have changed their motto, the 5 W's of who, what, when, where, why, to now who, what, when, where, and why I don't like it. You're not wrong, my friend. You're not wrong. All right, we got to go. Hour 2 is dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show is that most beautiful day of the week where we get a chance to talk about, Alaska, not a subject that most people are going to worry about in any way, shape, or form. Because, again, we have more guns per capita here than any other state in the nation. As Dr. Lott pointed out, we were the second state in the nation, only behind Vermont, to authorize constitutional carry. And that's been a huge boon here for Alaskans to be able to exercise their rights without the permission slip from the government. Not that stopped a lot of us ahead of time. I'm just saying, not that stopped a lot of us in the past. But here we are dealing with these issues related to the Second Amendment. And of course, the things that makes the headlines all the time are the mass shootings. Now, again, I want to highlight the fact that most of these meetings, most of these issues are tiny, right? The not the issues itself, but the perpetrators of the issues are a very, very, very small, minute part of the I lost the word, population. There we go. Whew, man, it's Friday. Of the population of the country. You know, when you have a country of 340 million people, and you have a country. Now, while each and every one of those individual deaths is a absolute tragedy, individually, for their families, for their loved ones, for the people who are around them, the bottom line is that when you look at it statistically, you realize that means that of all the citizens out there, you're talking about 0.00006 of the population, right? It's like 3 zeros of the population actually perpetrating those crimes. If 20,000 were killed by 20,000, not multiple homicides, but just like there was one person for every person murdered, it's such a small, minute amount as far as population goes on a per capita basis. And yet we have this movement, and have had this movement for the last nearly 80 years to try and disarm the populace based on the actions of less than a fraction of 1% of all the people out there. And that's, I want to try and continue to put that in perspective. Now, we can look for commonalities. We can look for connections between, why does this happen? That's why I think right now Bobby Kennedy is pushing this study for the NHS and the CDC and everybody to do studies on, SSRI and psychotropics for for people, and they're going to have a hard time again because of privacy laws and some other things. But they're going to look at this. Will they find anything? I don't know. I think that there is a potential because, again, many of these shooters were reportedly under the care of a mental health professional. But there's also the chance to go too far in what we're trying to do. And I want to take a second to talk about this because now we're looking at the fact that the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who I was a little leery of based on her past anti-gun positions as the Attorney General of Florida, some of the positions that she took, we were a little concerned when she was first nominated, but she's been pretty much walking the straight and narrow up until now. The Minneapolis shooting has caused many of us, myself included, to fixate a little bit on the fact that the killer, and many killers out, recently have identified as transgendered. And, going so far as to basically cosplay as women, mostly. There have been some women cosplaying as men as well. And that I focused on it not necessarily as the trans component itself, but as the mental health issue more than anything else. But the government, that they are reviewing ways to ensure that individuals suffering from gender dysphoria are unable to obtain firearms. President Donald Trump's Justice Department could take a huge step to address gun violence that goes against decades of precedent set by previous Republican administrations. In the wake of the latest shooting in Minneapolis last week, Attorney General Pam Bondi is considering banning transgendered people from purchasing firearms, according to the Daily Wire. Quote, individuals within the DOJ are reviewing ways to ensure that mentally ill individuals suffering from gender dysphoria are unable to obtain firearms while they are unstable and unwell, unquote, according to a DOJ source. And I have a problem with this because while I agree that there is a mental health issue aspect of this, and I agree that the people that are suffering or dealing with gender dysphoria, they are dealing with mental health issues. The broad banning of a single group of people based on the actions, again, of a relatively small number is problematic. Dr. Lott talked about schizophrenics in the United States, that there are 3.4 to 3.9 schizophrenics in the United States. And over the last, I can't remember how many years he said, I think it was 10 or 20 years, there has been one incident where a schizophrenic has turned violent and caused gun violence, right? And so again, you don't paint everyone with this is the broad brush problem. And it's exactly what I was just talking about with the statistics of 15,000, and it's 0.0006% of the people are actually causing the problems, and the answer by politicians and lawmakers is to ban or affect or restrict the rights of 99.9994% of all the rest of us. The same thing goes for this issue of transgendered people. I think that they have some mental health issues if they're dealing with these kind of things, this gender dysphoria and everything else. That doesn't mean that their rights should be restricted simply because they're suffering from those kind of things. Now, again, if we can prove that they're a danger to themselves or others, or there's I can see that. See, the dangerous slippery slope in this is, well, we talked about this, right, on this program, talking about playing the substitution game. Anytime somebody wants to come up with a new piece of gun control legislation, I'm like, okay, Well, you're talking about the Second Amendment and you want to do X to the Second Amendment. What about what is the analogous comparison to the First Amendment? If you wanted to, waiting periods, if you want to put a waiting period on a Second Amendment right, 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, whatever it is, how about we do the same thing to the First Amendment rights? You can't post or say anything in public without a 3 to 5 to 10 day waiting period and approval by the government. How do you think that would fly? Right? Well, the same substitution game can be played in these circumstances. Yes, there's been a number of high-profile shooters that have been trans, but that is not every trans person in America. Remember, you have the fact that many of the mass shooters in this country have been white males. So because the thing is white, should we pursue then to disarm all white males because of if you want to substitute trans for white males? Should we do that instead? Again, that's part of the problem. And you can't just look at it and go, well, it's because my guy, he must be doing it right, so I support him. Because it won't always be this guy in office, folks. Next time, it could be somebody who is antithetical to guns. Ironically, in this, it has forced some of the left-wing Democrats out there to try, and it's put them in kind of an uncomfortable position where they now have to try and defend the rights of transgendered people and be kind of pro-gun in that regard. So there's some interesting give and take on that one. But again, I would not support this eliminating the rights of a whole category of people based on the behavior of a relative few, a minority, a percentile of this. Now, maybe you don't agree with me. You think that, the transgendered is evil and wrong. And you got, look, again, I'm a libertarian. What you want to do with you and your body, that's between you and the maker, right? As long as you're not interfering in anyone else's rights, then I'm okay with that. Whatever you want to do. It's not my job to judge you. It's my job to be an example, but it's not my job to judge people. You do you, boo, as long as you don't hurt anybody else. Now, if you do hurt somebody else, then there's got to be consequences for that. Earthly and, afterwards, I guess. But this idea that you're going to take a whole section of the population and potentially remove a fundamental constitutional right it's just wrong. It shouldn't happen. Again, if you were to say most of the shootings are by white males, so now white males should be outlawed, I would be just as against that as I am against outlawing a whole other class of people or a whole other subgroup of people. Trans, black, gay, churchgoers, you fill in the blank with whatever subgroup you want to put in there. That's wrong. That's a slippery slope because you can't penalize an entire group of people based on the actions of a very, very small minority. It does happen, but it shouldn't. I mean, that's what gun control is about, right? It's about penalizing the 99+% for the actions of the less than the 1%, less than half of 1%, less than a quarter of 1%. And it's wrong. Regardless of who suggests it, whether it's your guy who you love or whatever, that is a slippery slope that we cannot take. All right. We're going to open up the phone lines for the next segment, 319-527-3864. Am I right? Am I wrong? You tell me. Do you think I'm out of line here? Because I don't. And I'll change my mind. I'll fight you over it. Come on. Change my mind. Let's see where we're at. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We continue with more here in just a moment.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. I see that Fred is on the line with us. Let's test out them phones, shall we, and see if we can hear Fred this morning. Good morning, Fred. Are you with us? Hello, Fred. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I can hear the phones, right? Can I hear the phones?
All participants are muted.
Yep, I can hear the phones. Let's try this again. Fred, can you hear me now? All right, I'm going to put Fred back on hold for a second because obviously something is not working right. So let's fix this real quick, shall we? Chat, thing, multi-track, yada, yada, yada.
Welcome to the conferencing service.
Okay, that's working. That's working there. And I will go back over here and sorry guys, just want to make sure this is all good. He's hearing me. I could see it flashing where he's supposed to be hearing me. Let's try this one. Will this work? Let's see if that works. Maybe. Here we go. Fred, can you hear me, Fred? Fred, my Fred, can you hear me? No, I don't see Fred flashing. All right, Fred, I'm going to hang up on you. You can try and call me back, okay? We'll see if we can get this going on one more time. In fact, I'm going to leave and rejoin. How about that? I will leave and rejoin. Oops, wrong one. There we go. All right. We'll try this one more time here. See if we can get this going back in here. All right. Thanks so much for calling them. Let's continue on here and see what you guys have to say. We will try this one more time. Are you with me, Fred? Can you hear me? Well, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I can hear something in the background there, but I don't know if Fred's hearing me and just not hearing me or what's going on. But anyway, this makes for great podcasting, doesn't it? I'm going to have to cut this whole thing out of the podcast, won't I? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to crash everything and just restart.
Goodbye.
I'm going to just crash everything and restart it one more time. Let's see if we can get Fred on board. We'll do it one more time and see if we can get it. Otherwise, skip it. I'm just going to we'll miss Fred's call this week, but we'll go for it. Okay. We'll try it one more time and get Fred on board here. And then I'm going to get to your comments real quick here. Okay.
All participants are muted.
All right. We're all good to go. All right. 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. Let's try this one more time. Are you there?
Yeah, Michael, how do you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay. That was weird. All right. I appreciate it. So I'm going to put
actually, I'm on my other line. I'm on my cell phone.
Oh, okay. Well,
I see
maybe
a different number.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. All right. Well, hold the line for a second, Fred. I'm going to be back to you here in just a minute or two. I got about 90 seconds here before I got to rejoin. Let me quickly go to the chat room, see if there's anything else that you guys have been talking about. Dangers, profiling. The government never has a knee-jerk reaction to anything, does it? Richie says banning trans from purchasing a gun is not really resolving a problem. That's the same solution they've always tried to use that screws every other people in the same group. I agree with that. People like to group people and judge them all. It's weird, says Lisa. I agree with that. Let's see. nearly impossible to win an argument based on common sense. All right. I think we're all caught up. We're down to the last 20 seconds here before we rejoin the radio. And so we're going to get with Fred's call, and then we'll finish up with some thoughts before we have to jump into it with Willie Waffle. Please like and share, like and follow the show page, ring the bell, do all the stuff on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Let's get this going on. Here we go.
Be great and solve a lot of problems.
Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
I don't know. It's just one of those things. All right, Fred is on the line. Phone lines are open, 319-527-3864. Am I wrong on this take? I don't know. Maybe Fred's got something to say. Fred's from Rhode Island. He calls in every week. Fred, what's on your mind?
Hey, good morning, Mike. You know, I'd say you're about 99% correct. There's one small niche that you didn't bring up.
Okay.
It boils down to not in a group session or group association like trans or this or that or blacks or whites or Asians. It doesn't make any difference. That's not the problem. Problem is the individual. The individual is got to be held accountable, not whatever group that individual belongs to or any associations thereof, but only the individual and the actions of the individual,
right?
Should be brought to light and dealt with directly, and that's really not that hard to do. I mean, John Lott had a lot of good ideas. One thing he never really brought up, though, and nobody else seems to be bringing it up either, is that these people do not exist in a vacuum. These shooters, these mass killers, they don't exist in a vacuum. They live in a society with other people. Other people are aware, either brought to their attention, or they see something, or they just know for a fact that something's not right with this individual that's going to go out and do this stuff, through manifestos, through videos. This last one in Minnesota had all kinds of stuff with the videos, little stuff he wrote on his gun. I mean, this is beyond a red flag. This is a flashing red light saying this is a problem. This is a danger. Something has to be done, and people know about it. I'm sure he didn't. Like I say, he didn't exist alone without somebody else knowing. I mean, he lived with a roommate. Other people knew him. All these people. The guy that took the shots at Trump there in Butler, Pennsylvania, he was well known. I mean, and if one of these people at some point in time were well known,
right?
To other people, and all you have to do is say something, see something, say something. It's not tattletaling. You're not sitting there squealing on anybody. You are preventing a murder. You're preventing a serious crime from taking place, and that is more important than anything else. Like I said before, it's a lot easier to say, "I'm sorry, we made a mistake." We did it, and we apologize for it, than have to say, "We have condolences for your loss." It's a hell of a lot easier to apologize for making for slight overhand a mistake than it is to sit there and have to condole somebody for
right.
somebody got murdered.
Well, and we've seen government make these mistakes in the past, right? I mean, we know that. I mean, the Parkland shooter, the guy had a dozen interactions with local law enforcement. He had a dozen interactions with the FBI. This guy was a known quantity, and yet nobody.
Exactly.
There were laws on the books. There were laws on the books that could have fixed it, and they didn't do anything with it. So, I mean, how are more laws going to fix it if you're not going to use what's already there?
Well, yeah, he had the one up in Maine too. Over in Maine, the guy that went to the bowling alley and shot the place up and killed all those people in Maine. He was well known. I mean, he's beyond known. He was definitely that was a flashing neon sign saying, "I'm gonna, something bad's gonna happen." And all they do now is the local law enforcement's pointing fingers at the military's pointing fingers at law enforcement. Everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off, sticking their head in the sand, saying it wasn't our problem, it's not our job. Well, this is not going to solve anything. Everybody's involved. Everybody. If you know about it, jump in, do something. And then what happened over there in Uvalde, Texas? All those guys sitting around for 45 minutes to an hour,
Right.
All those carnage are taking place in that school.
Right.
And nobody lifted a finger to do anything. It took another agency to come in and actually do it. And these clowns sitting around on their thumbs, waiting for something to happen. That's just, this is not the way to go about doing it.
Right.
See something, say something,
Right.
do something.
One more law is not going to fix the problems that we're talking about here. And again, although they get lots of headline and lots of ink and lots of clicks, it doesn't mean that it is, again, it's a small fractional portion of what's going on out there. You can't punish everybody in the country or any subgroup in the country for the actions of these very few. You have to, I agree with you, you have to penalize the individual perpetrators. Unfortunately, with these mass shooters, a lot of time they delete themselves before they ever get to a court of law to be held accountable. That's part of the problem.
Well, that's why you have to intercept them before they act. This is why you have to get them before they act, because they're going to commit suicide at the end of this thing. You have to knock them off before they act. That's the only way you're going to stop this.
So you agree with me that there shouldn't be any group that's held accountable. There shouldn't be a focus on any one group to have their rights eliminated. It needs to be the individual.
Exactly. It's always the individual, always, not the group, always the individual. It doesn't make any difference what color they are or what nationality they are or any religion, nothing. None of that applies. Only the individual who commit these things, who are going to do these things, and they're well known. The problem is they're well known. The media will never tell you that. I kind of wonder what the hell the media is involved with this, staying silent as they are and trying to deflect off common sense and reason how to stop this. They're trying to promote it. I think they're actually trying to promote the problem.
Yeah.
As sick as that is, I think these people, as much of the problem is the problem itself.
Yeah. Well, it's a frustrating thing to watch. And it's frustrating when you get somebody like Trump, who's been doing a lot of good things for guns. He created again the office of the Second Amendment Task Force, and he tasked Bondi with making sure that people's rights were protected. And then they come up with something stupid like this, and you're like, okay, wait a second, you're going in the wrong direction. And when they do good, we got to call it out. When they do something like this, we've got to call it out as how stupid it is, and we need to take a stand against it.
I think you're right. You're absolutely right. It's not the group; it's the individual.
Yeah.
But then again, you have the copycatters too.
Sure.
So I think that a lot can be done there too. These people, like I say, they're all known. Every one of these people was known to somebody prior to them doing something,
right?
Dastardly like they did.
Yeah.
And that's why you stop them right there.
All right, Fred. Well, thank you so much for calling in. Any other thing else before I let you go?
No, that's it for now.
All right.
That's
Thanks.
enough, I guess.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for calling in. 319-527-3864. Am I wrong that we shouldn't, whether you agree with the trans lifestyle or what, again, taking and scooping up a whole group of people and saying we need to remove their constitutional rights because of the actions of a few. How does that affect you? What are your thoughts on that? Am I wrong on that? Let's go back over to the phones here. Looks like Robert's on the phone. Let's see what he has to say. Good morning.
We're talking about the denying a whole group of people. What about nonviolent felons? That if somebody made a mistake when they were like 18, and now they can't own guns, that's pretty much the same thing as telling
I agree.
People they can't have guns.
No, I agree 100%. If you've served your time, if you've paid your debt to society, if you were a nonviolent felon, and I would even argue sometimes that even some violent, like if you committed robbery when you were 18, but now you're 45 and you've changed your life and turned it around, once you've paid your debt to society, you've paid your debt, right? Those rights should be restored. I believe that the right to vote, the right to bear arms, those should be restored. Nothing should stop you from being able to do that. Only your actions should be able to stop you. That's when your rights will be revoked, is when your actions prove otherwise. I agree with you 100%, Robert.
Yep. Okay. That was my question.
All right. Well, thank you so much for calling.
Thank you.
For calling in this morning. I appreciate you joining us on that. Again, I just think it's a dangerous, slippery slope. Do the substitution game, fill in the word trans for the trans group with any other group that you can mention. White males, Christians, blacks, Asians, gays, Protestants, Masons. I mean, whatever you want to put in there. That is, and it doesn't fix the problem. Again, trying to remove guns from the problem is not that is not the issue. The issue is deeper. The issue is mental health. The issue is broken homes. The issue is so much more than what we're hearing right now. And taking rights away from a whole group of people or the people as a whole is not going to fix the issue. That's the thing. All right, we got to go. Willie Waffle's coming up. We're going to do some entertainment review. We're going to lighten it up a little bit. Back with more. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return right after this.
Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Let me see what else you guys are saying on this. Mental health. Lisa says, and I can't read the whole comment because it's a longer comment, but let me just read what I can. Mental health and how we handle them is not good. Most end up in jail and get no help. And so many places that were supposed to be a safe place for mentally ill were sued and closed down for mistreating them. And that was a national decision. That was one of the decisions that happened under Ronald Reagan. The closing of many of the institutions in the country I think that now, again, you're right. One of the reasons why many of these places were closed down is because mistreatment, abuse, underfunding, malfeasance. I mean, all these things that were going on in these big institutions. But up until that point, if they were run properly, if they were overseen properly, if they were funded properly, it would take a large burden off the rest of society if these people were in one place where they could have, overseeing, getting their medication, doing all these kind of things. Once we started to close down those places that were for the mentally ill, those that can't cope in society, that's when we've seen this explosion that has come out of the homelessness and the violence and everything else. It's a shame. It is a true shame for sure. And I don't know if that's a full solution. I mean, do we bring back these large institutions, the mental institutions, and do we just make sure that we do it right this time? Because there are horrific stories of some of these institutions overcrowding, sexual abuse of the patients, and horrible living conditions and not really fix. Back in the early 1900s, they were electroshopping and lobotomizing people and doing all kinds of crazy, just crazy stuff. But again, when those institutions were here, we didn't have some of the other problems. The elimination of those institutions caused an unintended consequence of these other problems. So do we talk about creating more institutions and doing it right to help bring those people off the street and everything else? Who's going to pay for it, says Frank. Well, we're going to pay for it. We're already paying for it. We're already paying for it, just in a way that you're not expecting, in the unintended consequences of things like homelessness care and some of the other healthcare issues and things like that of people who are mentally unstable and aren't able to participate in. So we're already paying for it. If we paid for it through the institutions, at least they would have the care that they need. They wouldn't be out there in society being a danger to themselves and others, et cetera, et cetera. We're already paying for it right now, Frank. It's kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. Let's see what else is going on. Trans become a problem, says Robert, when they go in a public place or work and demand everyone accept their lifestyle. I guess that's part of the problem with anything that we have out there, whether it's trans or gay or whatever's going on. Again, you do you, but don't demand that I accept your lifestyle or endorse it. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for validation and an endorsement of their lifestyle, where I just want to, you do you. Just don't force me to say that it's the right thing, because I don't believe it's the right thing. Right? That's, it's a thing. Frank says, that's why I'm a philanthropist. Yes, Frank, that's why you are a philanthropist. That's 100% true right there, my friend. That's exactly what you got going on. Anyway, I don't think that this is an argument that, I was trying to portray it as an argument. I don't think most of you would disagree with the fact that you shouldn't take a whole group of people, regardless of who that group is, and eliminate a constitutional right based solely on the actions of a few. And that's what the president and his attorney general are proposing right now. I think it's the wrong step. And I hope that it doesn't, that we go in another direction. I hope that this is just kind of more talk than anything else. And yeah, we've talked about that as well, David. It's not just a mental health issue. It's that the homelessness has become a profitable industry. And so once there's a profit in a problem, the problem will never get solved. Right? It'll just be perpetuated. That's the whole point. Once there's a profit in that process, forget about it. Forget about it. All right. Well, we got to go here. Phone's buzzing. It's time to do this thing. Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. No website anymore. Just Waffle, just Willie Waffle. He's up next right now. All right, we're ready. The weekend. It's officially beginning when I bring on the man, the legend. Jeez. Willie Waffle, hello. How are you?
Just say, I'm the mensch.
You're the mensch. You're the mensch. The mensch. Willie Waffle, movie critic extraordinaire, all around a debonair man around town. Boy, we got some stuff to talk about. Let's get right into it. Let's start about it. And we were going to talk about this last week before everything exploded. And this is it, man. Do you really own the movies that you buy online? This is something that rubs me raw. Give me the details here, buddy.
So there is a new class action lawsuit that is getting to the heart of this matter. Okay. So their customers of Prime Video are suing Amazon Prime Video over the stance that Prime Video has, that when you buy a movie online, like you go to Prime Video and you hit that little buy it for $24.99 or $19.99, you don't really own the movie according to them. You have access to it for as long as they still hold the license to stream the movie.
Oof.
And once they lose that license, and that happens because things move around from streamer to streamer, your $24.99 purchase that you said was yours forever, it's gone, baby.
Yeah.
And the people that are suing in the class action lawsuit are saying that is a bait and switch, my friend.
It is. Yeah.
Now, because they literally say buy, like you buy, not like rent forever. Buy, as in you own, as if I bought the DVD and I put it on my shelf. And as we're getting into a more electronic society, and we're doing these things digitally, and we really are relying on these things that we're downloading and purchasing, through streaming. This is a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm kind of curious to see where this lawsuit's going to go.
Well, and, this is the same kind of thing that we see with software and everything else. You used to own your Microsoft, your Microsoft Office. You used to own your QuickBooks Pro or whatever it was. Your Adobe, you used to own it. And now they've all gone to this subscription model. Well, they charge you hundreds of dollars a year. Before, you suckers, you pay once and you're done. But the movie thing is really egregious, because at least if I keep paying my fee, I get what but if I, this is supposed to be a one-time purchase, buy it. And that's why somebody I saw on YouTube here a few months ago was talking about this specifically, and he was irate. And he's like, that's why I always go to Walmart and go to the dollar bin or whatever it is and look at the dollar bin for DVDs. If I find something I want, I put it on my shelf. That's why I still have a DVD Blu-ray player. And I'm like, he's not wrong. He's not. What if you lose internet access? What if?
Yep. Well, and it's very, very interesting to me. The state of California has a law in place about this already. They're saying that you can't call this a purchase unless you have complete unrestricted ownership of it.
Yeah. No.
So I think other state legislatures are going to hear about this and get involved and maybe pass similar laws.
Yeah.
And now, when I log into Prime Video in New York, maybe our law says I didn't purchase it, where, maybe Alaska or Oregon hasn't passed this law yet.
Right.
So now you've got different people seeing different things, and don't even bring me into the whole VPN situation.
Oh.
I mean, this is a mess. This is a mess. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put this one squarely on the streamers, okay? Because those guys knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
They said buy it. They said purchase it. They didn't put like in the fine print someplace, oh, by the way. No, they made you believe that you had that forever. And I blame their greed.
This is a deal that they should work out with the studios, just like a distributor buys and prints DVDs. If a streamer does it, that they should have the same right and say, yeah, we won't stream it to everybody, every Tom, Dick, and Harry. But if somebody paid the money, they own it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's be careful out there is what this is like a cautionary tale. I got to break out my DVD player again. Since I moved, I haven't even busted it out, but I think the time has come where we need to do that all over again. All right. What was the other big story? Amy Adams.
Yes.
Hit me with the Amy Adams story here, my friend.
All right. All your premier actors and actresses want to hook on to a big franchise so they can make a lot of money and be a toy figurine. Well, Amy Adams is joining the Star Wars universe, my friends. Yes.
Okay.
I think she's like 6-time Oscar nominee at this point.
Oh yeah.
And she has agreed to join the new Star Wars movie, Star Wars Starfighter.
Okay.
This is the one that's coming from Ryan Gosling, where he's going to play the star. It's directed by Sean Levy. They've got Mia Goth and Matt Smith are in the movie as the baddies, right? And this is supposed to be their next big Star Wars movie. I mean, you're going to have the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda / Grogu. That's going to be a big movie. But this is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be a new movie that's in the Star Wars universe, but with no connections to the Skywalkers, no connections to Darth Vader.
Okay.
This is going to be a standalone movie that's supposed to take place about 5 years after the events of the last Star Wars film, The Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
Now, they're not talking about the plot. They're not giving anything away, but there's rumors. And the rumor here is that Ryan Gosling essentially plays a character who's got to protect a young boy who's being chased by the bad guys, Mila Goth and Matt Smith. And Amy Adams is going to play the young boy's mother.
Oh, geez. Okay. My one question is this, and maybe you know it, maybe you don't. Is Kathleen Kennedy involved in the production?
I don't think so. I'd have to check.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure because Star Wars is going off in other directions now. Like, they're really, they're I think what's happening now is Disney is looking at this and they're going, we kind of exhausted a lot of the TV series. I mean, the series just are kind of dwindling returns lately. There's only so much juice you can squeeze out of the Skywalker saga, and the Mandalorian, even the Mandalorian and Grogu, kind of feels like we've seen everything we need to see from them.
But we know that Andor is a smash hit, right? We know that that's been
great. That's true.
We know the animated shorts have done phenomenally well. Anything that Kathleen Kennedy doesn't have a direct impact in. I mean, I'm that's it. I mean, The Acolyte was total trash.
True.
It was totally a train wreck. The wokeness and everything, the things that she had her hands on. The word was that she was on her way out. I know we're getting down into the weeds on the Star Wars nerdy stuff, but anybody who knows anything,
retiring.
That's what I heard. I heard she was retiring on her way out. So, I mean, the fanboys were kind of rejoicing that maybe she was out. I'll reserve my judgment until I see what's going on here. But anything in the Star Wars universe, I'm okay with. It doesn't have to revolve around Skywalker or Solo or anybody else. Like I said, the Cassian Andor thing. Wow, that thing is just totally wow. So anyway, okay, let's move over, and that's going to be 2027 next year or year after next,
Memorial Day.
Yeah,
2027. So we've got plans. We just have to make it.
Yep. All right. What do we else we got? The summer box office was not so great.
Not really. And this is that continuing story that you and I keep talking about. People just aren't going to the movies the way they used to. The box office has not even come close to rebounding to pre-COVID era numbers. And now we're how many years after COVID now? 4 or 5 years really after COVID, and if you want to be really technical, I mean, the big COVID push was really 2020 to 2021. So we're like 4 or 5 years out. But what happened was this was supposed to be a big year. 2024, they did very, very well. We started seeing big numbers because of Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Right.
And everybody said, "Oh, how can you miss in 2025? You're going to have Mission Impossible. You're going to have Thunderbolts coming out. You're going to have Superman coming out. You're going to have the Fantastic Four coming out. Why people are going to be running to the box office, just throwing their credit cards at the window to get tickets." And even with all those other movies that we didn't have in 2024, they stayed about flat. The ticket box office numbers were $3.67 billion from May to September, which is about what they did in 2024. Now, what Hollywood is trying to embrace and trying to celebrate, and I think there's a little bit of truth to this, the actual number of tickets did go up.
Okay.
The actual number of tickets sold went up by $1 million, or by 1 million total. Sorry, 1 million total.
Right.
So more people bought tickets. Now, what that tells me is they're buying tickets on Discount Tuesdays. Everybody's running discounts like Discount Wednesdays, all sorts of things. And if that doesn't tell you what's wrong with the business, I don't think nothing else does.
Right.
I mean, people are willing to go to the movies if it doesn't cost so darn much, because they're afraid to make that massive investment in possible disappointment.
Yeah, no, they're running for the discount Sundays through Thursdays. That's when they're buying their tickets, right?
And you know what else they're doing?
What?
You know what else they're doing? Did you see the box office report last week?
No.
So we had 2 movies come out, Caught Stealing and oh god, I'm blanking on the other one right now. Oh, The Roses, right? Come out last weekend. You know what sold more tickets than those 2 Hollywood blockbuster new releases?
What was that?
The 50th anniversary special run of Jaws.
Okay. Yeah, I can see it. I mean, people, because they know what they're going to get. And people, I think Hollywood's got to step up. The movie theaters, obviously, the COVID thing has killed them. They're struggling. But I think Hollywood needs to step up too and realize people are not buying into some of the crap that they're producing. All right, we're running out of time. I don't want to go too far here. In fact, I don't even really have any time for any more. We still got a couple good news stories, but let's go over to the movies. Where do you want to start?
I want to start. Let's start at home. Let's start at, hey, I don't need to leave the house. I can just watch a new movie on Apple TV Plus that stars Denzel Washington. That's directed by Spike Lee. I'm there, baby.
Okay.
It's called Highest to Lowest. It opens today on Apple TV Plus, and it's Denzel Washington playing this music mogul. He started a real big record label. He's trying to buy it now. He's totally stretched out financially. He's basically put up everything he owns as collateral to get the money to purchase this studio. And right as the deal is about to go down, his son is kidnapped for ransom.
Oh, geez. All right.
Yeah.
And of course
and
now,
what's he gonna do?
Yeah, I can't buy the company now. I gotta pay for my kid, right? Yeah.
Yep. Well, and the thing is, it gets very complicated in a good way, and I don't want to give away too much because I really like what happens in the movie. But one of the things that comes up is all those people who like lent you the money to buy the studio, they want you to buy the studio.
Right.
They're not looking for you to get your son back from some kidnappers.
Yeah.
And they might not be happy if you decide this is what you want to use the money for.
Yeah.
And so you've got that ethical dilemma going on, which is very fascinating to watch. You've got just the pure Denzel Washington being Denzel Washington, captivating, watching him struggling with this. Just, there's a scene where you just sit there and you watch him going through and you could like see him thinking in his mind all the different options, all the ways he's screwed. And you see it on his face and you see it, the emotions coming from him. And you're like, that guy's one of the greatest actors who ever lived. And then you got Spike Lee as a director. He gives you some great chase scenes, and the way he portrays New York, from the Richie Rich at the top to the gritty city at the bottom, it's amazing. I'm at 3.5 waffles for highest to lowest. I really, really liked it.
I love me some Denzel Washington. Okay, that leaves us with about 2 minutes here for what my wife has been waiting for, which is the last edition of The Conjuring. The Conjuring Last Rites.
Yes, and this is what they're billing as the last case of Ed and Lorraine Warren, and these are the people that we followed through all the Conjuring movies. Very famous in the paranormal research world. For the Amityville Horror, Enfield, a few other places where they did investigations that became famous.
Right,
and this is a case in 1986 where they are going to Pittston, Pennsylvania, where a family is being haunted after they bought a mirror.
Okay.
Yes, the mirror is haunted. But dude, it's more than that.
Oh.
The mirror wants the Warrens to come
to
the house.
Oh, it's a trap.
It's a trap, baby. And it's really, I will say, I think there's a lot of fluff in here. They're really trying to build up the whole thing of Ed and Lorraine and their family and the things they've been through, and they're really selling it as like a going away goodbye kind of movie, okay?
Wow.
And they're getting they kind of get really too much, I think, into things that are not, let's go to Pittston and take out the demons, okay?
Right.
But when they do, it's all there, man. The action is there, the thrills are there, the way that they just ease you into the scares are there. I'm at 3 waffles. I have always liked the Conjuring movies.
Okay.
I think they're very well done, and I'm a little sad that they might not make more, but I have a feeling that they will. I think there's still some other cases we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah. All right, folks, we're out of time. We got to go. We'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. Sorry about that, Willie. We were up right up
totally
against
understand.
It. Yeah.
Totally understand.
I got about 3 or 4 minutes here. So quickly. Because you usually don't like horror movies, and that's Terry always complains about that. She's like, or not, it's not even horror. I guess it's horror, but it's suspense. That's not your thing. But you really like these movies.
Well, because I think they do them very, very well. I mean, I think that what makes them stand out is I think they have very good storytelling. I think they have very compelling characters. I think that I'm not into the cheap jump scare stuff. I like the way that they lure you in here, where you're on the edge of your seat. You sense the danger around the corner. You sense that you really don't want to look in that mirror. That kind of stuff. That's what gets me. That's what gets me excited about a scary movie, and I think they deliver on that very, very well here. And they mix in the jump scares, and they mix in some of the things that I think people who like other types of horror movies will appreciate in this one as well. So I just think they're better done. I don't know how else to put it. I just think they're better done.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm down with it. I know Terry will be excited. All right, what's coming up next week? What do we got? Anything looking forward to?
Next week, how about that Stephen King movie, The Long Walk, is going to be next week.
I don't know how hip I am on Stephen King these days, but the guy can write. We'll see what goes on. Okay, Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Thank you. Never mind. Goodbye. Thanks, my friend. We'll see you next weekend. Okay.
You have a good week, man. I'll talk to you next week.
All right. I can't stop saying the website. It's crazy. All right. We got to go, folks. We will see you guys on Monday. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. Have a great weekend. The Michael Dukes Show.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Dukes Show.